Hey guys, this is All Things Sure here with another review. And of course, you know what time it is. You know what time it is. Wednesday, Queen Sugar graced the stage once again. And this time they did not disappoint. We see that I'm here with a review and a recap, and I'm going to give you my views and my opinion. But before we get on and get into this season 4, episode 3, we're going to talk about a little bit of housekeeping before we get on. And of course, as you know, I've been with YouTube and I have been doing my review and recap basically 3 years, I think, with Queen Sugar. So, in order for me to become monetized, I'm not yet monetized, although I've been with YouTube for quite some time, but I'm cool, I'm chilling. But you could help me become monetized by clicking, by subscribing, by watching, by sharing, by clicking on the notification and sharing the video. So let's get on with the review and the recap of season 4, episode 3. And I'm not quite sure if I wrote the title down, but let's get on with it. Of course, we see in the beginning of the episode, Aunt Violet is basically in the mirror, and what has been happening is that she was basically up all night reading the memoirs of her niece's book, Blood and Blessings. She was basically having a pep talk to herself. She was saying, "You're better than this. Get it together. Get it together." In the meantime, Hollywood knocks on the door and sees that basically she's been up all night, and Hollywood said to her, "I basically told you not to read this book, but you basically gonna do what you're gonna do anyway. So hey, it is what it is." And so we see that Aunt Violet and Hollywood is getting ready to grace and go into their restaurant, Buy Pies. While they in the restaurant, Aunt Vi is basically looking around, trying to get the restaurant and everything together. And she's basically at one of the counters and she's straightening up and she's cleaning. Next thing you know, that you hear a bell. You know how the bell is, especially in a restaurant, and if it's in a small town, it's going to alert, to let them know that basically they have a customer. So, the very customer that Vi Prize get is Jimmy Dale. Basically, Aunt Vi didn't know exactly who it was. She was basically with her head down and cleaning the counter when she looked up and noticed that it was Jimmy Dale. When she noticed that it was basically Jimmy Dale and he spoke to her, she really didn't say anything. She was just like stunned. Stunned to the fact that he had the audacity after 30 years to come back into St. Paris. And so of course everybody faints, and of course she faints in the arm of Jimmy Dale. So basically she comes out of the faint, and this is when Jimmy Dale and Hollywood. Jimmy Dale was on one side and Hollywood was on the other side. Basically, Hollywood had asked for Jimmy to basically get him a child so he can put, Aunt Violet at ease and to get her under control and to find out exactly what's going on. And gives her orange juice and everything. And basically, she really has completely blanked out and don't really remember what really happened. But in some sense, she does remember what really happened. And this is when um, she asked Hollywood to basically take her home. In the meantime, while she asked Hollywood to basically take her home, we see that Nova. Basically, Nova is in a high, but Nova is on a riding due to the fact that she's, trying to basically figure out what she's going to wear because she's getting ready to promote her book. She has an interview, I guess, at one of the radio stations or one of the TV stations. We're not quite sure, but then all of a sudden we see that there is I'm going to say a Skype call. Maybe it might be a FaceTime. We're not quite sure, but we basically see this woman. I think her name was Darla or Darlene. No, not Darla, but Deborah. I believe it was Deborah. And this is when she went on and told Nova. She says, Nova, I have some very good news for you. Nova was basically telling her that she was trying to put outfits together because she didn't know which one to wear. And this when Deborah tells her, well, you may not need this. It's because basically you have gotten a review and you have gotten a love letter. And also, not only have you gotten a review and a love letter, you also got an advance in your book from the New York Times, best time seller. Any of you all who are basically writers, basically if you get a love letter from the New York Times, that's basically saying something, that's basically telling you that they like your writing and that you're basically on your way. In the meantime, while we're dealing with Nova and she's dealing with all of her accolades, especially coming from the New York Times, um, we see that basically uh, Micah. Basically, we see Micah and we see Charlie. And Michael is basically chilling at home before he gets ready to go to school. And Charlie noticed that Michael is basically reading the book that his auntie gave him. And so Charlie tries to have a conversation with Michael to let him know that perhaps when you get from school, we can basically talk about, what your aunt has written. And so this is when Charlie has a conversation with Michael, and she asks him, uh, "Do you believe in basically what has been written in the books of your aunt, the black and white that's on black and white?" And so basically, Michael tells him no, but Michael also go on and question his mother about I think it was like 2 years ago. Well, the first year, the first and second year, where we find out that Michael's father was basically in a sex scandal, and that Charlie basically paid millions of dollars to basically have this sex scandal to basically go away. And so Charlie to Michael questions his mother about it. And so Charlie goes on and tell her son that basically the reason why that she did that is so that they could basically live a normal life and so that they can live a private life. And so this is when Charlie asks her son, she says, do you believe in, the things that I'm basically, she said it in so many words. And so Michael goes on and saying, basically, in so many words, he doesn't really trust his mother, but basically he does trust the woman who basically who wrote the book and who's basically, I guess, he assuming that Nova is, the person who he trusts, who's telling the truth. And so basically, Charlie really didn't really say too much. This is when she kind of sort of was getting kind of disappointed with some of the answers. And I'm like, well, it is what it is. So we go on, and then this is when we see that Prosperous in Ralph Angel. Prosperous basically has stopped by Ralph Angel to see exactly how he's doing now. Remember, Prosperous was the one who delivered the great news that the fact that he is no longer, he's a free man. And so this is when Ralph Angel go on to explain that the fact that what basically Nova has done, he tells a process that Nova has basically wrote a memoirs, and she's putting everybody in the memoirs, and she's talking about their personal lives and their personal business. And this is when Process says, well, is it anything in the book that I need to be concerned with? And then this is when Ralph Angel at this point told Prosperous that he doesn't think so. But I don't know, because she didn't wrote about everybody else. So she could write about the fact that Prosperous really didn't really own the land that basically he had been staying on for over 30 years. And Charlie found out. Nova could have wrote something in there about that, because remember, I think in season 2 or 3, we find out that Prosperous didn't own the land. We found out that he was getting ready to get evicted. But anyway, so this is when Prosperous went on to talk to Ralph Angel about the fact that when he was about 15 years old, he found out that his father, his birth father, and as he says, his biblical father, wasn't really the man who basically raised him. It was his dad. And his dad, I guess apparently his mother dated someone else. And his dad was the one that he basically really looked up to, as far as being his dad or father. I don't know how he put it, but dad was really the one who he basically really cared about and really understood, and basically didn't really care as long as his biological father, his biblical father, it didn't really matter to him as long as his dad. So and by process basically going and sitting down and basically explaining this to Ralph Angel in a way that it kind of sort of put Ralph Angel basically at ease. Then, while Ralph Angel and Prosper was basically having this conversation, we see that, and because you know that Ralph Angel and all of the farmers, this is harvest time, so everybody's basically getting ready for the harvest. So one of his workers basically was coming over speaking to him in Spanish. So this is when Ralph Angel says, calm down, slow down, talk to me real slow. And then this is when we find out that one of his workers, and I think one of his immigrants workers, basically got sick. And so this is when we see that basically we see that Ralph Angel basically gets on the phone, and he basically, we don't really hear about it, but we hear about it when we see Charlie. And she gets a call from Ralph Angel, and Ralph Angel says that he has one of his best workers basically got sick, and basically he doesn't have any health insurance, and he can't go to the hospital because he's not legal. And so this is when we find that Charlie basically is tell Ralph H. Well, she says, I can basically probably help you with this. And then this is when we see a scene where we see Romero, and Charlie is basically coming up to meet Romero basically for lunch. And so we find out that the person whom she had in mind was Romero. Now, remember what I did the review, I think it was last week, I said I didn't know whether or not, or the beginning of the premiere section, I said I didn't know whether or not if he was a doctor or a massage therapist or whatever, but we find out basically that he is a doctor. How we find out that he's a doctor, Romero goes on and tell Charlie that the worker that he basically went and checked into is basically fine. And so Charlie was saying, well, she's glad to hear that. Then we go on and we have a conversation and everything, and they're sitting down, Romero and Charlie's getting ready to sit down for lunch. And so this is when Romero went on and have a conversation about the fact that Ralph Angel basically treat the people who's basically working on his farm, that he's very good with them. And then he went on into it a little bit more, and he explained and told Charlie that he heard something, a couple of things that was basically disturbing him, and he didn't really like it. He basically found out that a couple of the farmers who was having illegal immigrant workers to work their farm and to work their cane wasn't very nice and wasn't very kind, and that there were deaths on one of these person farmers, and basically we know who that farmer person was basically Charlie. I think in episode 2, where Charlie basically did force to work during the storm, and they did get caught and they did die. And so when Romero was basically explaining this to Charlie, you could see basically the reaction to Charlie's face, because she was basically kind of holding her head down, because she know that she was the person who basically, made or forced these people to do this work. Now, for me, this is just me. I found that when Romero basically mentioned the fact that these two immigrant workers was forced to, work the land, this was Charlie's opportunity to be transparent. Now, this is me, I believe that this is going to come to bite Charlie in the butt. And so while they were having the conversation, um, Romero was basically telling Charlie that he wished that he kind of sort of had a clinic that could basically take care of the migrant workers, kind of sort of off of the roadside, so they could take care of their needs. And this is when Charlie, I guess she was basically trying to, do something, make up to the fact of what she did about 2 years ago. So this is when she basically offered Romero some land, some vacant land that basically she had that was in the back of the sugar mill. So she offered it to Romero. And so this is when she asked Romero, well, basically, what do I need, or what do you need in order to get this clinic up? And he basically said that, well, really, we just need volunteers, and this could basically, all we need. So, of course, Charlie offered the land to Romero. Now, Charlie really, I'm going to say something, Charlie really, really liked Romero. But due to the fact that she had the opportunity to be transparent when they were talking about it, when they was at lunch, she didn't say anything. Due to the fact that it was her who forced these people to work. Now, due to the fact that in 2 of the dates that they basically got together, Romero mentioned something about his kind of sort of past, and this is when Charlie kind of said something to Romero, which would maybe gave Romero the opportunity also to be transparent. So in my mind, I could be wrong on both of them. Not necessarily Charlie, but I think that Romero. So we don't know. We'll see. So in the meantime, we see that Nova. Nova is basically on an interview, and she is talking about the book and everything. And they had told Nova that they had 2 couples, but actually we only saw 1 couple who got a basically advanced copy of the book. And it was a wife and I guess the daughter and the mother. And so they were talking to Nova about the book and how basically the book kind of sort of helped them to get through the relationship her and her mother was basically having. And so this is when they asked Nova, well, how was it when you and your sister basically was basically having some issues and challenges? How did you basically do it? Okay, guys. Nova's in the business of selling books. Nova's in the business of making money. After she got that love letter to from the New York Times, do you think she's going to, be transparent and say, yo, look, me and my sister, we're not doing really good. It's because really I didn't really go to her and ask her for her permission to put some of the things that I put in the books. So Nova is in the business of selling. Nova doesn't want, if you look at it, the way she's moving, doesn't want anything to get in the way, because she is getting, and we have to admit it, she is getting ready to blow up now. Now we don't know. Remember in episode 2, uh, Charlie had asked, when they did finally, the Nova and Charlie finally did together, and Charlie asked her to put the brakes on it, and then this is when Nova said she can't put the brakes on it. The book is in published, it's in print. Now also remember that Charlie basically has went to try to put the brakes on it too by serving Noble with a desist and stopping this book, but she can't really do it. So we haven't really seen, those particular things come together when it comes to Charlie trying to stop this book to go worldwide, because it is getting ready to go worldwide. So in the meantime, we see that Ralph Angel is really having a nice little lunch with the nice little brown, charming, beautiful black woman who is basically a lawyer. And so we go on and find that Ralph Angels is basically trying to be transparent with this young lady. And we're going to find out her name before the end of the season. Trying to be transparent with this young lady. And we find out that Ralph Angel basically tells this young lady that he was a criminal and that, he was incarcerated. So this was a beautiful scene. Basically, she really likes Ralph Angel, but she also is a lawyer. So, and she also has a young little girl. So she has to be very, very careful as to who, especially men, who is basically hanging around her daughter. And so she went on and she told Ralph, and she says, really, it's cool. I basically, did a background check on you, and I read about you. And she says most of the time what would be happening is that sometimes the person behind the case, the person behind the file, is not really that individual. And so we can tell that her and Ralph Angel really, really like each other, and I do like the fact that they are basically taking their time with each other. And so we should go on and see exactly how this is going to pan out. Now, I think that it's going to pan out very interesting, is because due to the fact that she's a lawyer, due to the fact that her father was a farmer, so in some sense she's going to come in there some legal kind of way, because she's a daughter of a farmer, so she pretty much knows some of the things. So we go on and we see that Michael has basically been acting really gung-ho, really macho. He's got this little image that's going on. He's thinking that he's, that I don't know what he's thinking, but he's got this really look, the swag look, and I kind of like the look on it. But his girlfriend Kiki is basically is not really paying any attention to him. She's very, very angry and mad due to the fact that, remember last week, Michael kind of like, went off on these two white guys, and he basically, thugged out on them. And so she basically came and said, look, I want the old Michael. I'm not used to the old Michael. There's plenty of thugs in the school and everything. I basically like you. And so this is when Michael told Kiki that he can't promise that. No, Kiki told him that he needs to try to figure out and try to harness that energy somewhere else. And Michael says that he's really trying, but he will basically be not disrespect her, but I believe he's going to slip and make a mistake. I'm not quite sure, but we should see as it goes on. And so she said, okay, we're going to see, we're going to work it out. And so we go on, and then we go on and we see that Charlie. Now you know that Charlie and Joseph basically work for the same company, and Joseph's mother is Frances, and Frances is Jacob's mother. And so Charlie finds out that Jacob has a seat at the a seat at the meetings and is able to do vote, but Charlie is not. And so you know how Charlie is. She found out the information. She goes to Jacob and she asks Jacob, "What the heck is going on? How come you are able to basically vote in the board? Where is that you and I? We basically have the same shares when it comes to the company." And so this is when we find out that the little Landrier, the little snakes, they at it again. The little snakes are doing something that they ain't got no business, because now what I think the uncle, the father, or the brother, or whoever, or Francis, okay, Francis and Jacob's, I don't know, but anyway, Charlie finds out that he joined his shares along with his uncle. So his uncle has made it so that he could vote, and made it so, and they put a clause in there where Charlie cannot vote. And so, of course, Charlie burst in and tried to find out what the heck is going on. She basically gets on the phone and try to get a hold of Francis, but Francis is basically nowhere to be found. Is one reason why she's nowhere to be found. We find out by Joseph. Joseph says that she's in New York conducting business, and then later on we find out that Francis basically spent $1.5 million on some unnamed, unclaimed property. And so when basically Charlie finds this out, we also see that Jacob is trying to do this sob story due to the fact that his mother is kind of a slimy kind of person. His uncle is kind of a slimy person, and that he's trying to put that privilege guilt on Charlie due to the fact that she has a family that basically love her and all this blase way, right? And so then this is when we find out that while Charlie was basically in the office, there was a lawyer, there was consultant, and basically Charlie said, "Well, why are these consultant, and why does this lawyer knows me?" We find out that there's some hanky panky going on. And so Jacob really couldn't say too much because the lawyer was basically there, and the lawyer was basically ear hustling. So basically, he basically text Charlie and told Charlie to basically meet him out in the garden or whatever. So they went into the garden, and we find out that this is when we get this sob story about you having to love me, blase William, blase this, and this is when Charlie said, I'm not really trusting. So this one when Jacob tells Charlie, said, "Why don't you just kind of chill and just, sit back, relax, and collect the bag, collect the dividends." And so this is when Charlie was like, she wasn't really having it. She wasn't going to have it. So hey, she went out and said, then, you know how Charlie does. She get into her Olivia Pope kind of move. So she went and called Olivia, basically wanted her private investigation, and told Olivia, told the woman, I don't think, told the woman that she wanted her to basically check out about this little property that Francis basically was trying to buy, and she spent $1.5 million, and she wanted to know who the land belongs to. So I'm wondering if the land belongs to Member now. Charlie did all kinds of maneuver trying to get Prosperous back onto that land. So I'm wondering if they're trying to buy that land from underneath uh, Prosperous without Charlie knowing it. So we go on and we see that we go on, and then let me just go ahead and deal with this right quick. We go on and we see that Micah has basically gotten out of school and has basically came home, and we see that Michael has basically received a letter. Now, this letter that he basically received was a threat letter. And so he read it, and Kiki was basically there, and Kiki said, "Well, why don't we take it to the police?" And Michael said, "Well, what are the police going to do or whatever?" So this is when Michael basically took the letter to his mother, because his mother was home in her office. And so this is when Charlie says, "Okay, I'll take care of it." Back into the Olivia Pope move. Olivia Pope. Now, when I'm saying Olivia Pope, because she moves just like Olivia Pope. If you guys, have you ever seen that show? I forgot, Scandal or whatever. She moved like Olivia Pope. So basically, she annihilated and didn't really let Michael know that this was not the first time that he has been receiving threat notes. Now this is when she basically goes into her drawer, take the key, unlock it, pull out, and we find out that he has been getting threat notes all the while that he was in school. Remember last year, basically he made a rally, put together a rally. He received a threat letter there. That's when Charlie, bang, put it up on the desk. Said, remember when you made that about the prison? Bang, here's a letter. Remember when you made that speech basically in Paris? Bang, here's the letter. Uh, Remember when I sent you away? Basically, I sent you away to Paris. It's because I sent you away. It's because I wanted to protect you, and I wanted to get you away from these letters and these threats. And this is when she went on and told Michael, she says basically, you are mine, I'm going to protect you. And this is when she told Michael, she says basically, you've been in Paris and you had undercover cops, you had bodyguards, and you had no idea. When you got up on the plane, you had bodyguards. When you came back from the planes, you had bodyguards. And this is when really Michael really couldn't say anything. This is when he become a child again. This is when he becomes humble again. He couldn't say anything. He had to be humble. It's because his mother told him, I'm in the business of making sure that you are protected. I want to make sure that nothing happens to my son, because basically that's her pride and joy, and she would do anything to protect her son. And so this is when she told Michael, let me protect you, let me watch over you, and this is when Michael becomes humble. Now, Nova. Nova, 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 Nova. When I heard what Nova basically did, and we found out that Nova was the responsible for the mystery, the scumbag, the creepy guy of the earth was responsible for him coming back into St. Paris after 30 years. I kind of sort of wanted to take something and throw it at her, or if Nova would came anywhere in my direction, I don't know what I. Yeah, I know how I get when I can't find words. But anyway, Aunt Violet is basically back at the house, right? And we know that Hollywood basically went to the diner, told him basically, look, you need to get out of town. If you don't get out of town, basically I'm going to put my hands on you. I'm going to put hands on you, right? Okay. We go on and we see that he basically went back to the house and he told that everything is cool and everything, all right? So we get into it a little bit more and we see that um, the scumbag of the earth basically comes back. Jimmy, knocking on the door. And so Aunt Violet is basically in the house doing her thing, which she always do, is basically she's cooking. And I'm saying, and she said, well, I don't know who's at the door, but she was like baking a pot pie. And I love myself some pot pies. You hear me? And then we find out who's at the door, because I'm saying to myself, it can't be it can't be Hollywood, because Hollywood has the key to the house, so we don't know. So we find out who it is. It's the Slitter guy. To make a long story short, he basically came there to upset Aunt Violet again. And so this is when I did my other review. Remember I told you he was very charismatic. He has a way with words. He has a way with women. But at the same time, he's kind of slicky and he's kind of sly, right? And so he says, come on, let me in. I kind of sort of want to just come and talk to you and basically apologize. And so I'm saying to myself, Don't you dare open that door. Don't you dare open that door. And of course, she caved in. Now, even though we're kind of upset at Nova, but I'm beginning to see this blood and blessing breaking down due to the fact that, yes, Aunt Violet did get weak for a minute. For a second, she did. Same thing with Ralph Angel. He got very upset when Nova was trying to explain in terms of adopting and becoming, a father. But let's get back to Aunt Violet. She opened that damn door, right? And then this is when he comes in, he got his little hat on, he's looking real charismatic with the beard and everything, and he says to her, well, I see the house is basically the same, nothing's changed. I still smell that food of yours, but this is when I kind of like, and then it's when he tells her, well, really, to be honest with you, I didn't really marry you because of your cooking. So you know what he's basically telling her. I didn't really marry you because of your cooking. I married you because of your sex. Let's just get real with it. I married you because of your sex. And so this is when he went into that. This is when everyone says, look, you got to get ready to go. You got to get ready to roll. Get out. Get out of my house. Get out. And so this is when he was saying, come on, what's really going on? And so she's beginning to push and shove. While she was beginning to push and shove Jimmy Dale out of the house, this is when Nova comes up. Now remember, previously, Aunt Violet has basically told Nova that you need to get your little buns over here and explain to me as to why you wrote this book and why you put my name in your memoirs. And if you don't come over, I'm coming over there in the Ninth Ward, and I'm going to find out what's going on. And so, while Aunt Violet is basically pushing and shoving him out the door, here comes Nova. And then Nova is saying, Jimmy, what are you doing here? And this is when we find out Nova was the reason why Jimmy Dale was basically back in town. Now, this is when everybody is mad at Nova. We find out that Nova basically went to Jimmy Dale to give, as she would say, his perspective on forgiveness. And I was like, and I was saying, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You kidding me, right, Nova? You kidding me? And for all of these people, you have Charlie, Ralph Angel, Dollar, Hollywood, and Blue. But the person who you really go to see if you can get some perspective on the book was the same man who violated your aunt. Are you? I'm like, as they say, make some sense out of this for me, will you? Make some sense. And so this is when they kind of, and Aunt Violet was basically, it's getting overtime, but I'm just going to do it. I was like, with my mouth wide open. And I'm like, I'm looking at, not doing a side eye. What? And this is when they shoved his little butt out the door and everything. And so, here come Hollywood. Hollywood basically said, are you serious? You basically had your nerves to come into my house after I told you to hit the road. And I told you that if you did come back, that these hands, and basically the hands started popping on Jimmy Dale. And so he wound up in the mud, and basically he got up off of the mud because Hollywood put hands on him, gave him a couple of black eyes, and he left. And then he basically said something. He says, well, you will never be able to get, something. But I'm going to say this. I believe that something is that, I believe that Aunt Violet must have been pregnant by the scum of the earth, Jimmy, Dale. And so this is when we see Nova and Aunt Violet in Hollywood. Nova is basically apologizing. Aunt Violet in Hollywood said, you always apologizing and saying that you're sorry. And then this is Nova says, can I tell the truth? And I was like, well, what more truth can you get? And so this is when Aunt Nova said, look, when I die, don't even put flowers on my grave. I was like, oh God. She said, I don't care if it's like 10 years or so. It may be like 10 or more years or so. I'm going to do something that your mother would basically do. Don't you ever step your foot in my house again. Don't even come around. In other words, don't come to the barbecues. Don't come to the family reunion. And when I pass away, don't you dare even come there. And then this is when we see Nova basically leave out, and she's crying. And that's the end. We went a little bit over, but I try to, in my reviews, I try to make sure I try to cover as much as we can. I'm going to tell you, we are only in episode 3? And Queen Sugar is coming out swinging. And I don't know. I don't know, but I will say that this is really getting good, and this is really getting interesting. The audacity that Nova basically would go to the man who violated her aunt to get an okay to get another side of the story, and you didn't even come to the family, but you go to this guy, and you are responsible as to why he came back to torment your aunt again. I don't know, Nova. Girl, to the next time, in the next video, say peace and love. Come and check me out again next week. Ciao, I'm out.